You're listening to Italian American Radio. Talk radio focused on Italian Americans and all things Italian.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Johnny Mandolin Show, broadcasting live on Italian American Radio. Welcome to the Johnny Mandolin Show. Hey, we're having fun here, broadcasting on Italian American Radio. I have a very special guest coming all the way from Australia, Mr. Michael Cristiano, singer and performer. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. So lovely to be with you today, Johnny.
Oh, it's our pleasure, and I'm glad this is working out. So we've had other Australian performers on. Alfio's been on, and a gentleman named Al Roney, who's from Australia but now performs in Las Vegas. So it's always a pleasure to get, people from around the world on Italian American radio.
Oh, well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you're this great singer. Tell our audience who you are and what you're doing.
Okay, sure. Well, my name is Michael Cristiano. I'm a musician, singer, composer, producer, songwriter. So I kind of wear a lot of hats and have worn a lot of hats throughout my career. But I've been doing this my whole life, since I was a very young boy when I first started taking guitar lessons. And so just to give you a quick oversight of what I've done, kind of went through the whole academic thing, musically speaking, here in Australia. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. And by the time I was a very young teenager, I had already started a couple of my own bands. And by the time I was probably 16, 17, I started, because I could read as a studied musician, I started playing on all the TV shows and all the recording sessions around Melbourne at such a young age that my dad, who I'll talk about later, was a huge influence on me. He used to have to drive me into the studios because I didn't have a license to drive. And those kind of things opened up many other opportunities for me, working with a lot of big acts then. I toured with, I'm sure actually over there you'd know the Seekers, because they had a huge hit with Georgia Girl from the movie.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I stepped up and became their musical director and record producer from 1992, when Judith Durham, the lead singer, rejoined, and I still retain that position today, even though Judith has sadly passed away. But that's opened up so many opportunities with other international artists around the world, and here I am recording my first Italian solo album.
That's amazing. I'm so glad, and this is a real celebration, and I'm glad we're going to preview some of your great songs here on Italian American Radio. So tell me a little bit about the music scene there, and where do you perform? What do you have to do to perform in your area?
Look, without sounding, I don't want to put a negative spin on it at all, but the music scene here in Australia, which was at one point incredibly rich, has somewhat been watered down a little bit. And I think that happened just after the whole pandemic situation in 2020, which shut everything down. As you probably may know, Australia was probably the most lockdown country in the world, especially, and Melbourne, the most lockdown city. And that unfortunately caused a lot of the venues to not reopen once things reopened here in Melbourne. So the music scene is slowly climbing its way back. And we have a rich music scene in terms of like jazz and country, rock, R&B and pop throughout most of the small venues around Melbourne, and then of course the big theatres where the international acts come and tour. But it's not what it used to be, but I'm hoping it will be, if not soon, better than it was. So keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, America's had a similar situation and a similar effect, but I'm so glad that you are sticking with it. And tell us a little bit about some of your performances.
Yeah, okay. So throughout my career, obviously, as I mentioned before, my main job, I guess, was as a record producer and a guy that used to either open shows or be in the band, so to speak. Never really stepped out into the spotlight the way I have at the moment. But, you know, when I was touring with big shows, like when the Seekers toured internationally throughout London and New Zealand and Australia, I was in the band as the musical director then. But previous to that, I was in some show bands in Melbourne, and typically they would be the kind of bands that would back the big artists of the day. And many of them would be coming over from the States, like Al Martino and the Supremes and that kind of stuff. And so I'd be on stage with them, quite often opening the show with a set of my own, and then, of course, we'd back the band. And then for a couple of years back, I won't say how long now, to show my age, I teamed up with a young songwriter, country singer here in Melbourne, and we had a country music duo, kind of like Lady Antebellum before there was Lady Antebellum. And we won just about all the awards and so many things that, you know, that you can win in country music here in Australia. And that took us to Nashville, where, you know, I spent nearly 3 months living and writing, producing over there, which was a fantastic experience for me. And I've been doing a lot of solo shows around Australia lately, but I'm now building up to, of course, this is an all-Italian album, and I'm building up to doing some all-Italian shows next year, both here, but mostly overseas, hopefully in Europe.
That's wonderful. And we love Italian music. We play a lot of it on this station. So
yeah, me too. Love it too.
That's so great. And I'm glad you're kind of keeping the flame going because, you know, Italian American radio is kind of all about Italian Americans, not Italy, but Italian Americans. But we also bring in a lot of Italians from all over the world, including Australian Italians and others. So that's why it's so great to have you on.
Well, I'm so thrilled to be on. I mean, one of the songs, we'll probably talk about this soon, but one of the songs that's on this album is called Sangue Tricolore, which is, you know, blood, three-color blood. And it really is a reference to the fact that I was born in Melbourne, but I'm a pure-blood Italian man. Both my parents, as far as I can trace back their history, are Italians from the south, from Calabria, like so many immigrants that came out in the 50s to Australia after the war, mostly from the south. And I've always felt like my heartstrings were being pulled towards Italy. And every time I go there, and I'm sure a lot of Italians and many other people from different countries around the world, when they land in that country, you feel this kind of incredible pull. It's almost like the DNA is connected in some strange way.
Oh, I'm sure.
So this album is really about that and celebrating my culture. And I mean, they're all love songs mostly, but they're all about love and loss and heartbreak and love winning and all that kind of stuff. But it's got a romantic edge with a rock kind of background.
I think that's great. I love the music. Now, are you the author, the composer of all these songs as well?
Yeah, so I have a lyricist who's a lovely, very talented Italian, another Calabrese girl. She wrote the lyrics for this, but we collaborate on everything all the time. But the music, I wrote all the music and incidentally played and sang everything on the record. There's no one else on it but me. So it is a collaborative effort, this one, because she writes quite beautiful, poetic, romantic lyrics, and she quite often sends them to me. And in her mind, when she wrote it, I think she had a very different idea. But I love shocking her by putting them against really kind of rocky tracks or making the music a bit darker so that the lyrics kind of just have a bit more gravitas, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, you know, that's, look at Elton John and Bernie Taupin and, Lennon and McCartney and a lot of songwriters have worked with lyricists and music composers. And it's always a great blend, and it adds so much to it because you're adding all this creative force. And you're bringing in your Italian heritage as well. You know, I always say I'm also 100% Italian roots. I always say I'm made in America with Italian parts. So
it's funny you should say that. That's what I say. Oh my gosh,
that's
I didn't know
great.
Someone else had that line.
That's great. Well, the best way for our audience to know who you are is to hear some of your music.
Sure.
Tell me about Anima Antica. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Anima Antica. That's one of my songwriter Raffaella. Her name is Raffaella. That's one of her great kind of poetic lyrics that, again, that it talks about love and about it kind of relates to the famous story of the that, the alpine style, the edelweiss that falls from the sky and hides itself amongst the rocks, looking for love and salvation. And without getting too spiritual about it all, it's not really a spiritual song that way, but I think it just paints these beautiful pictures. And I've tried to set that against a kind of contemporary, almost yacht rock kind of styling, because I'm obviously influenced by, well, mostly American bands, and everyone from Toto back in the 80s, of course, to Earth, Wind and Fire, to Luther Vandross, and I could go on, of course, and keep talking about all this. But I've tried to incorporate some of those things. But most importantly, this one I love because it has an extended guitar solo. And one of the things I've been missing in contemporary music these days is that the loss of instrumental solos in songs.
Yeah.
I used to love that as a kid. And
so important.
I decided, I don't care if it sounds a bit retro, I'm going to throw it in. And so that's why I love this one.
Great. Well, I'll tell you what, let's see if we can get this playing, and let's hear it and play for our audience. So stand by.
Sure.
Okay, so we got Michael Cristiano, and from his new album, Anime Antica, and let's hear it. Wow, that was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Can you hear that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't know. I didn't know if the music was going through to you.
Well, I kind of heard it a little bit, and then it cut out. So I just waited patiently because I know how long that song is.
It is long, but it's great. And I know what you mean about the guitar solo. Now, that was you playing?
Yeah, absolutely. I played everything on this record. Yeah.
Well, that was truly excellent. And being a guitar player myself, I got to say that was really impressive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks very much. Well, that's wonderful to hear you're a guitar player. That's wonderful, man.
Yeah, I play guitar and mandolin, thus the Johnny Mandolin Show, but I
Yeah,
play
of
more,
course, mate.
these days I play more mandolin than guitar, but I love to do both.
Yeah, mandolin's a wonderful instrument.
I love it. So, so tell me a little bit about the recording process when you record it.
Well, for this particular one, it didn't all happen over a short period of time. I kind of stretched it out a bit because in between all these recordings, I was working on other artists' productions, you see. But usually when I'm working on something like this myself, it usually just starts with, first of all, making sure you've got the right arrangement and progression for the song itself. And usually I do that just on an acoustic guitar or on piano. And then I will usually send a rough of that to Raffaella just to make sure that her lyrics, so she's happy with the way it all kind of hangs together. Quite often I'll chop and change stuff around to make the chorus pop a bit harder, or those sort of things, that songwriters kind of do anyway. And then I'll start fleshing it out. And usually it starts with the rhythm section. I might start with the drums, the bass, piano and guitars. And then I'll see, before I do a vocal, I'll kind of see if it needs some more colors in it that might help me emote better when I'm singing. When I get it to the point where I think I can sing it, I'll usually do a vocal then. And then the last process really is fleshing it out with, if I feel it needs orchestration or some more modern kind of sounds or backing vocals and all that sort of thing. Then I record those, and then it just comes time to mixing it down, and you've got a song.
Yeah, well, you certainly do. That's great. Love the production, love the solo, and the music and your girl's lyrics are incredible. That was a really great song. So tell me about Tell me about Con l'amore. What's that one?
Yeah, Con l'amore non si scherza. That's a song. I think it's quite personal to a lot of people because it translates to you don't fool around with love. That's what the translation really is. Mm-hmm. And you should take it seriously. I guess it's relating, especially when you're in a relationship where people quite often can be quite flippant with things they say or the way they act towards each other, and sometimes love can be broken because of that. So this is basically saying, don't fool around with it because I'm in love with you, and I need you to take this seriously. That's the gist of the lyric.
All right.
And this one, because of the sentimentality in the lyric, I decided to make this a much more orchestrated ballad, and with a much more, and I'll say this, how do I put it? A much more Italian melody. I'm a great lover of all the Neapolitan melodies, of course.
Me too.
The Neapolitan genre is one of the greatest in Italy and one of the greatest in the world, really.
Yes.
So I tried to come up with a melody that was kind of oldie worldy, recognizable but not, and that kind of how can I say this? I was kind of channeling everyone from Pavarotti to Andrea Bocelli and that kind of thing. So that's where they came from.
Well, let's hear it. Let's play this on the air and let our audience hear this great music you're writing. Beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, thank
Love
you.
it. That's wonderful. The lyrics are beautiful, and the way you address the melody, all just gorgeous, man. Good job.
Thank you, Johnny.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, tell us about any travel to the United States or anything coming up that our people can look for you.
Well, absolutely. So the whole plan, of course, is to now build this with a view to hopefully doing some shows next year. I would love to get to the States. Of course, there's such a huge Italian population over there, but further to that, I don't only sing in Italian, and a couple of the songs from this album I will release as Spanish language records as well for the Latin market. But America is so rich in culture and diversity, and sometimes people forget just how global we've become now. And I think touring this album across Europe and hopefully into the States would be a huge dream of mine.
Well, we love that. Any help we can be here, you let us know. And
Oh,
how can people get in touch with you? Do you have a website or an email?
yeah, absolutely. If you want to get in touch with me, my website's really simple. It's just www.michaelcristiano.com. And there's no H in Cristiano for those out there.
Spell it out. Spell it out.
Yeah, so it's Michael, Michael, and Cristiano, Cristiano.
.com.
Yeah, and it's spelled the same way as Cristiano Ronaldo, who I'm sure a lot of big sports fans would know who that is.
Oh, sure. Well, I want all our listeners to check you out. Go to that website and definitely find out when will this album be released for sale or for download.
It's already available on all streaming platforms. Well, it actually was officially released in November on the 1st, so a few weeks ago. But it's out on everything now.
Well, we
So
got
please,
you right after it.
Yeah. So please, you're like one of the first ones. So I'm really thrilled to be talking to you about this right now. What a perfect timing.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is perfect timing. I'm so glad we got you. And I think my question to you is, will you come back in a future date?
I would love to.
That would be great. That would be great. Well, before we end the show, let's close with another song here. Tell me about let's see, La Tuta in Poesta. Is that it?
Tutta una poesia. I love you picking these different songs. It's really interesting. Tutta una poesia is a favorite of mine because it's another kind of poetic lyric, but this time it features a bit more of my classical guitar playing on this, and it's a much more emotional, kind of cool, cruisy kind of track. And I've loved recording this, and I loved singing this. So I hope you enjoy it.
Well, that's great. Oh, I'm sure I will. And I'm so glad that we could share all this with our American audience. And like I said, all the other countries that pick us up and listen. And so by all means, stay in touch with us. But let's, before we close our show, let's play this song because it sounds so interesting. So let's roll it. Beautiful, Michael. Beautiful.
Thanks, Johnny.
Love the nylon string guitar.
Yeah,
That's so
well,
great.
that's what I started on, and that's what I still love.
Oh yeah, the classical guitar is a great sound for jazz, bossa nova, ballads, everything. Well,
Absolutely.
I want to tell all our audience to please check out Michael Cristiano. You'll be seeing a lot more of him, and you'll be hearing a lot more of him on our network here on Italian American Radio. And thank you for listening. Now, don't touch that mouse because we've got a lot of shows coming up right after my show. Thanks for listening to the Johnny Mandolin Show. Michael, hang out. Don't go anywhere. And we'll play lots more for you in the future. So everybody stand by because lots more coming up on Italian American Radio, broadcasting 24/7, focused on Italian Americans and all things Italian. Ciao bella.